In the mirror's cold reflection, his face appeared unremarkable, narrow, lined with sharp contours that defined him. Not because he was handsome, but because his expressions always revealed his stance. It was easy to recognize when he was surprised. Those eyes, sharp teeth, and attentive gaze seemed to push the world outward, as if trying to read its unspoken fears. He knew the truth. People feared silence more than screams, the silent stare that doesn't blink, that doesn't react. This unsettled them more. Dmitri believed he was crossing a boundary of belief, not through words but through mood and rhythm. Today's conversation needed to be intense, yet controlled, no hysteria. He saw no room for panic. Trust had already been lost before it began. His real strength lay elsewhere, in confidence rooted in the conviction that he fought for progress, history, and truth amid the chaos of time. The word Russia sounded almost like a linguistic code, solid, universal, complex. He knew what he was wielding. A mark, a half-question, an uncheckable phrase, elements that sounded like coincidence but held deeper meaning. Russia was layered, a nation that gives but never truly changes. These weren't mere words, they were precise tools he had used for years, unrecognized by others. In his mind, this was no debate, just a crafted image. To him, the Russian opponent was always a compilation, part caricature, part antiquity, invoking the past with obligatory reverence. Every time, he tore this image apart systematically, leaving only the bureaucracy and the power structures behind. This was his craft, his mission. The assistant signaled readiness with a nod, an extended finger. Everything was set. Dmitri Kivnal stayed silent, never turning his gaze to the assistant during these moments. In such silence, he needed no one. This was his domain, a space where silence spoke louder than words. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickened, the air seemed to hold its breath. An unseen tension filled the room, as if every molecule was waiting for something to explode. What secrets lay beneath this calm surface? What truths would emerge when the moment finally erupted? And then, the unexpected happened. The screen flickered, and the connection snapped. A moment of shock burst through him, the silence that followed was deafening. Today, the conversation wouldn't be as simple as it seemed. Something had shifted, something hidden. Dmitri's heart quickened. The game was changing, and he knew the stakes had just risen dangerously high. The question now was, who was on the other side? And what did they really want? The screen remained blank, only the name Gardon lingering like an ominous echo. The silence stretched, an eerie pause before a storm. The mind raced. What hideous truth was unfolding? And would he be ready for what was coming next? Previous part summary. In the tense moment before the call, Dmitri Gordon maintained composure, ready to face an uncertain future. He anticipated a straightforward conversation about Russia's past, but the unexpected happened. An unforeseen move shifted the entire scenario, revealing who truly controls the game. Now, he's left pondering what secrets lie behind that silent pause. He settled back into his chair and allowed himself a brief, almost unnoticed smile. Today, everything was supposed to be simple, no surprises, no hidden agendas. Just another discussion about Russia's efforts to cling to its past fears, its echoes of power rooted in history. He could almost see the familiar scene play out, the debates, the arguments, the propaganda meticulously divided into clips to be shared online. He knew exactly where this road led, right into a trap crafted by someone else's hand. And yet, he felt almost confident. It was as if he wasn't addressing opponents but the entire audience. The enemy was only confused, lost amid the noise. His main goal? To keep them from believing the myth, to cut through the nonsense with facts, logic, modernity. He stared into the camera, confident in the narrative he was about to unfold. Any Russian watching this would see either the government's face or a nostalgic shadow, waiting quietly. He had traveled this route countless times before. He knew every step, every twist. The camera burned bright with anticipation, casting a sharp glow on his face, sharpening every line and wrinkle. "Put your palm on the table," he heard the voice instruct. "Don't cross your arms. Don't look closed. Keep relaxed but balanced." And then, the tablet paused. Its screen dark, reflecting nothing but shadow. Suddenly, a tiny vibration, the signal was stable. His eyes sharpened, fixing on the device like a predator. Inside, a flicker of fear, an unspoken tension thrumming through him. The unexpected had arrived. He clenched his jaw, senses heightened, knowing this was the moment to act. The figure on the other side, Anatoly Wasserman, was silent, no smile, no tremor of emotion. His expression was heavy, almost weighing down the air itself. It was not fear, more like surprise, a feeling rare in his professional life. Dmitri's gaze fixed on the screen as if he could dissolve into it, disappear from the room. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions. Why now? Who sent the message? The question spun in his mind like a whirlpool, pulling him into deeper uncertainty. And then, in that quiet moment, he realized, this moment could change everything. But what secret was Wasserman hiding beneath that stern face? And more importantly, what was Dmitri's next move in this dangerous game? The room was filled with a silent, electric tension, the air thick with unasked questions. Could he confront the truth head-on? Or was this pause the beginning of a trap from which he wouldn't escape? Stay tuned, because what happens next will shatter everything you thought you knew. Wasserman. The smile of happiness was completely absent. No fear, just shock. An unexpected, rare feeling that had lately become unfamiliar in his professional life. Dmitri was too recognizable to be mistaken for anyone else. He wasn't fitting into the usual image of a convenient Russian opponent on video. Something was off, something had shifted. Dmitri glanced at the screen, leaning in as if he could make the image vanish if he stared long enough. His mind raced. Why now? Who gave the number? Was this an accident or a trap? But almost immediately, he shifted gears, adopting a more familiar, confident stance. It was safer. Familiarity breeds control, and that was his main tool. He knew Wasserman's reputation, long, fact-based monologues, relentless memory, details. That was his weakness. A long pause settled. Dmitri mentally prepared his approach, calculated, precise. The assistant silently handed him a weapon, without asking. Dmitri froze, then signaled the backup command, holding his finger up. The camera kept rolling. This was his backup plan, an alternative method. He already decided. Why? Because Taika had pressed the button. The screen flashed, the connection severed. At that moment, before uttering a single word, Dmitri understood, today's interview would not unfold as expected. Still, he maintained his confidence. No matter what, he would control the narrative. The link vanished almost instantly. No drawn-out struggle. No hesitation. No minor attempts to reconnect. Wait for him to accept the new call, he thought. On the screen, only a blank, neutral font displaying the name Gardon. No face. No expression, just these simple words. Dmitri maintained eye contact with the avatar, anticipating the first words, an unspoken challenge. The silence felt deafening, but he focused. Suddenly, a voice emerged. Low, faint, unremarkable. Not unnoticed, but intentionally flat. Dmitri didn't like it. But he refused to give up. His instinct sharpened. He raised his chin slightly, alert. Instantly, he activated his security shield, ready for anything. Other calls had already been blocked, but this was different. He sensed the shift. He had one more card. He was prepared. Why? Because he knew the game. The voice on the line was not what he expected. The truth was lurking behind the words. Something was off. He could feel it. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a cutthroat chess match, with each move deliberate. Small clues dotted the exchange, echoes of tension, calculated pauses, faint sounds of breathing from the other side. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle. Then, the line went dead. Without warning. No neon or flashing signals, just the silence. Instant darkness. But Dmitri wasn't shaken. Confidence remained. Whatever this was, he controlled the room. He could already feel it, the shift in power. All of this was just the beginning. The game was far from over. Deep down, he knew that today, nothing would be simple anymore. But one thing was clear, he would come out on top. Or so he thought. A thick silence settled over the line. Dmitri could feel the weight pressing down, like the air before a storm. The unexpected calm from Wasserman's side made his mind race. What was this? A trap? Or a dangerous game? The room around him seemed deafening, his own heartbeat loud in his ears. Would this call turn into chaos or reveal secrets long buried? Suddenly, the voice broke the silence, calm, cold, almost detached. I'm calling because I have something to say. The words were precise, sharp as a blade. Dmitri hesitated, then clicked the ringing device involuntarily. An act of defiance. Deep inside, he knew something was off. Why so calculated? What was Wasserman planning? The tension spun tighter, like a wire ready to snap. The response came faster than expected. Wasserman continued, almost mockingly measured, if you're ready for honest conversation, let's be straightforward. His tone cut like glass. A whisper of a smile echoed in the words. The last phrase was silent but powerful, almost a challenge. Did Wasserman already know the outcome? Did he expect Dmitri to break first? The line went dead, but Dmitri sensed the game was only beginning. He leaned back, feeling the cold flash of anticipation. Without warning, the connection shattered. The screen blacked out. Silence. Then the message appeared, only a word, Gardon. His name. Just 3 letters. Instantly, his mind revved. Was this a warning? An accusation? Or worse, an invitation to a confrontation he couldn't escape? His pulse quickened. This was no ordinary call. It was a trap laid bare. Did Wasserman reveal too much? Or did he save the best for last? The void was deafening. Dmitri stared at the dark screen, senses sharpened. Every second stretched into an eternity. His fingers trembled slightly, was it fear? Or the thrill of the unknown? The air grew thick, heavy with unspoken threats. How did everything spiral so fast? What secret was hidden behind the silence? The moment hung, fragile and tense, waiting to explode. Until suddenly, a faint vibration broke through, that unmistakable, steady pulse. The game was on. But who was really in control? Dmitri faced the call from Anatoly Wasserman head-on, refusing to yield private ground. He boldly challenged the man to speak openly, a move that turned the tables in an instant. But as he hung up and prepared, an unsettling truth hit him: this wasn't a routine clash. The expression in Wasserman's voice lingered, a tone that forced you to sit up straighter, as if gravity itself had shifted. Why does a simple phrase carry such weight? It humiliates without a punch, leaving you trapped in your own defenses. Surely, Dmitri pondered, recovering his poise. He had weathered countless battles, but this felt like walking into an unlit room, where shadows danced menacingly against the walls. The scent of cold coffee wafted from his empty mug, mixing with the sterile air of the studio. His fingers tapped the polished table, each click echoing like a ticking clock, counting down to confrontation. In that deep room of his mind, where strategies unfolded like old maps, Dmitri sharpened his thoughts. He was no longer just a journalist, he was a witness, a herald announcing truths to an audience eager for revelation. Confident in the habituation, he signaled to begin, one step closer to unraveling mysteries. What shocking secret did Wasserman hold that could topple Dmitri's reign? His heart raced, the warmth of adrenaline spreading through his chest like a brewing storm. Anatoly Alexandrovich, he addressed calmly, eyes locking onto the imagined camera, piercing through screens to the hidden office. You're on the line. Tell me. Please, what made you reach out today? Wasserman's reply sliced through like a sharpened blade, calm yet razor-edged. Because today, you're weaving Russia into an abstraction again. Ideal in realities, not illusions. A heavy silence draped the air, thick and oppressive, punctuated only by the faint hum of studio lights. Dmitri's jaw tightened, the smooth wood of the table cool beneath his palms, grounding him against the rising tide of surprise. This was an attack veiled as insight, an unexpected twist that stung like a hidden thorn. How could his standard narrative be dismantled so effortlessly? He wouldn't let the pause consume the moment, too many interviews died in awkward voids. Swiftly, he placed his glass on the coaster with a soft clink, leaned toward the camera, forging an intimate bond with millions watching from afar, their breaths perhaps held in suspense. Reality, Dmitri echoed, his voice low and raw, tasting the word like bitter fruit. A powerful term. Let's embrace it and begin. He inhaled sharply, exhaling control. Channeling that steady tone, not for questions, but to frame the battleground. In our world, Russia interweaves itself with neighbors through coercion and force, wielding the past like an unchallenged decree. These aren't sentiments, they're undeniable truths. He paused, the studio's faint air conditioner whirring like a distant reminder of time slipping away. What if Wasserman dismissed it all with a smirk? Dmitri posed the challenge deftly, no cracks in his delivery, yet beneath the interest lay a biting accusation. All eyes on him now. Was this the moment his empire cracked? I need to know, do you truly believe there's nothing amiss here? He held the line, pulse echoing in his ears, the screen flickering with unspoken tension about to explode. Imagine the clash of titans unfolding live, where smug certainty crumbles under relentless scrutiny. In the depths of this heated exchange, the air thickens with unspoken fury, every word a deliberate strike. The aggression explodes from him in a sharp, piercing tone, honed by countless intellectual battles. It hangs heavy, metallic like stale smoke from an old cigar, biting at the senses. And here it comes, a direct, searing question aimed straight at you. Dmitri tilts his head slightly, his chair creaking under the pressure. He presses, his voice low and insistent, cutting through the tension like a knife through butter. As an intelligent, knowledgeable person, are you truly clueless, or just selectively blind to the facts? He pauses, letting the words linger, the faint hum of the camera fan underscoring the silence. Then he surges forward, what I've seen is manipulation in plain sight. Wasserman's response slams back without mercy, the line crackling with unyielding force. Do you honestly believe Russia will escape accountability for this chaos? The words drip with challenge, the air growing denser, suffocating. Dmitri leans back dramatically, his fingers gripping the armrests like talons, reclaiming the spotlight. Of course, he counters calmly, a sly grin forming. Inside, a surge of triumph pulses through him, like electric currents zipping along his veins. Total command, intoxicating. Let's unpack this, he thinks aloud, the timbre of his voice steady as drumbeats. Where are you heading? Facts, or raw, twisted justice? He's poised, ready to pivot, because in these waters, consequences crash like waves. Factually speaking, he drivels, when conversations swirl about Russia's provocations, it echoes old excuses to dodge blame. And history? He snatches the water glass with a clink, not gulping but sipping deliberately for effect, a cool, glossy sheen on his lips. He sets it down decisively. The ball's in your court now. Serenity washes over him, the studio's faint acrid scent from overhead lights fading into comfort. Vladimir Putin, the Kremlin, nostalgia, those tired tropes march on in his mind, the script unshaken. But little does he know, cracks are forming, whispers of undoing lurking. For now, though, he reigns. Yet Wasserman doesn't relent, his assault probing deeper, the voice steady as grinding gears. No dramatic pauses, no synthetic fervor, just cold precision seizing the reins. He circles back, unanswering the prior jab. Your scattered theses, he dissects clinically, they dazzle if untouched. But isolate them, and the facade shatters. Each syllable lands like icy shards, indifferent to the onslaught. Dmitri braces, expecting walls, but encounters a mirror instead, a reflection of vulnerabilities exposed. Wasserman forges ahead, you claim Russia's trapped in chaos. Fair point. But economic pressure mirrors sanctions imposed upon it. Political strings? Consider the foreign advisors and millions poured into the post-Soviet realms. Military footprints? Compare the sprawl, the reach across borders. The accusations build like thunderclouds, dense and foreboding, forcing Dmitri to recalibrate mid-stride. Will he crumble under this storm? Or launch a counterstrike that humiliates his foe? A twist looms, what hidden truth is about to erupt, shattering perceptions beyond repair? In a world of sharp debates, where control seemed absolute, the tension escalated as voices clashed over sovereignty and past failures, questioning borders and balances in the post-Soviet realm. Did you know that just one unexpected phone call can shatter a man's iron grip on the narrative, exposing cracks in his empire of words? What if the man you're about to humiliate turns the tables, wielding facts like a weapon you never saw coming? The air in the studio hung heavy, thick with unspoken tension, the faint hum of cameras a constant reminder of the audience watching. Dmitri's heart thudded against his chest, each beat echoing like a drum of realization. He leaned forward, fingers gripping the edge of the table, the cool wood grounding him as sweat beaded on his palm. Why not discuss the raw truth about those post-Soviet borders? Scrambled not by wise design, but by fallout's cruel aftermath. No safety nets. No interests balanced fairly. That elusive sovereignty you flaunt, does it really hold, or is it just a mask? He paused, not for drama, but to gauge the shift. Had anything changed? No. Sovereignty means nothing without real power. Imagine standing firm, running your own course. Flags and anthems fade when decisions buckle under external force. That's surrender, Dmitri thought, the cold bite of defeat tasting bitter on his tongue. His usual flair dimmed, no broad gestures, no confident leans. Instead, he sat rigid, knuckles white, eyes locked on the blank screen as if seeing ghosts. Wasserman's voice cut deeper, relentless, pulling the rug from under assumptions. You demanded Russia take blame alone. But why dodge the blame on others tangled in this mess? It's a clever flip, painting the accused as the accusers. The words hung sharp, stripped of fluff, logic slicing like a blade through flesh. Failures aren't just judgments. They stem from steps taken, expansion, promises broken, interests trampled, primal acts of dominance. Dismiss them? Shrug and say they're ancient history? But when fingers point back at Russia, suddenly the past matters most. Dmitri stirred, muscles tensing as he sought to counter, but Wasserman anticipated, his tone flat yet piercing, void of flair. This isn't a true exchange, is it? Just a montage you craft. Snipping out discomfort. Amplifying shock. Professional, sure. Emotionally empty. The camera zoomed in, capturing lines of strain on Dmitri's face, his eyes flickering with rare vulnerability, a fire building as if ready to sear. He hunted for openings to reclaim the reins, the room's stillness amplifying every tense breath. And in that charged pause, Wasserman delivered a blow that twisted everything. What if the weakness everyone sees is the propaganda itself, fragile yet paraded as strength? Why had he underestimated this challenger, allowing silence to become his undoing? What hidden edge would surface next, forcing a surrender he never imagined? The scent of defeat loomed, sharp and acrid, but the fight raged on, unseen tides pulling perspectives into chaos. In our previous segment, the camera zoomed in on Dmitri's face in a tight shot. He appeared composed on the surface, but his eyes betrayed a simmering tension. He anticipated an error from his opponent. He sought any avenue to reclaim control. And then, Wasserman delivered the next line. Did you ever imagine a debate could shatter your entire worldview in a single, unflinching silence? The air in the studio grew thick, almost suffocating, carrying the faint hum of the camera's motor and the cold scent of polished wood. Skin prickling with unease, Dmitri felt the weight of words unspoken hanging like a storm cloud. You claim the world misunderstands Russia, he retorted, voice steady, yet edged with challenge. No. The world sees Russia precisely as I intend it to be seen. What a devastating twist, accusations turned back like a dagger. And comprehending the complex is always harder than pointing fingers at the guilty. The silence stretched, not dramatic or performative, but raw and deliberate. In that beat, everything shifted. Dmitri hadn't foreseen this void. He gazed into the camera, then drifted slightly sideways, feigning contemplation, though his mind raced. No prepared phrase bridge waited. This unplanned jolt exposed a crack in his armor. Crisis struck first, unstoppable now. Instinct kicked in, his signature move for derailing rogue conversations. Face muscles tightened, lips pressing into a thin line, voice shifting to journalistic detachment, a weapon he wielded to seize momentum. Good, he exhaled slowly, enunciating each syllable. Let's discuss Syria then. Not honesty or present missteps, but the system itself. He tilted his head slightly, channeling a nod that signaled pre-planned precision. You cling to the past, the Soviet era. The rhetorical sting hit hard. Did the ghosts of repression and empire demand a reckoning? Russia positions itself as the Soviet Union's heir. It inherits its voice, its authority. The words tasted bitter, like swallowed ash. Yet you sweep under the rug what poisoned nations for so long. The repressions, the oppression, the iron-fisted control, the imperial mindset. He paused, demand lingering in the ether. He calculated his trap well. This provocation would force Wasserman to defend recklessly. To laugh it off. To justify the unjust. He leaned forward, breath quiet but fierce, waiting for the ripple of panic, and in that pregnant hush, the real battle began to unfold, leaving you gasping. Would Russia's shadowed legacy finally crumble under the light? Just moments ago, Dmitry Gordon faced an unexpected twist during a tense online confrontation. His opponent, Anatoly Wasserman, hit him with words so sharp they seemed to cut through the digital silence. Gordon, expecting a typical debate, was thrown into chaos. Something had gone terribly wrong. His mind raced, his confidence wavered as the loud voice from the other end echoed in the quiet room. Did Wasserman just humiliate him? What secret lay beneath those icy words? The conversation began calmly enough, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Wasserman's tone was measured, yet beneath it lurked a whirlwind of conflicting truths. He claimed that Russia's right to its past wasn't just a matter of history, it was a complex web woven from centuries of sacrifice, pride, and inevitable destiny. Not simply an act of nostalgia, but an inescapable part of national identity. As he paused, the words rose like a pungent wave, rich with meaning, heavy with implication. The air thickened with unspoken challenges. How could Gordon counter this? Did he even understand the real stakes? Wasserman painted a picture of unity and centralization, of scientific centers and infrastructures interconnected like a vast, living organism. Every republic, every city, was part of a grand design, crafted with purpose and precision. He emphasized that this system, no matter how flawed, was rooted in reality. Was it merely a fortress of the past or a foundation for the future? As he explained, the words cut deeper, those phrases that echo for years, once thought distant, now glaringly present. Was this the truth? Or just a narrative spun for control? The room grew colder, the silence was deafening. Did Gordon realize he was walking into a trap? Or was he too blinded by his own convictions to see the trap closing? Suddenly, the conversation shifted. Wasserman articulated that the past wasn't just a relic, it was an active part of current life. The scientific centers, the infrastructure, the universities, they weren't relics, but living, breathing entities. Did Gordon hear the challenge? Was he prepared to face the weight of history? The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Every sentence was a brick in a fortress, built from facts and sometimes from illusions. And as the tension escalated, Gordon wondered, did he truly grasp what lay beneath the surface? The discussion took an unexpected turn. Wasserman's tone grew colder yet more deliberate, revealing a hidden edge. Was this a lesson or a trap? Gordon's pulse quickened, his mind, once clear, now clouded with confusion and resolve. The room felt charged, the shadows lengthening as the reality of their clash became undeniable. What truth was hiding behind the words? Was this a battle for narrative dominance? Or was something far more personal at stake? Only those who dare to listen till the very end will uncover the shocking outcome of this confrontation. Dmitry Gordon sat perched in his studio chair, the leather cool against his back, poised for yet another battle against Russian narratives. The air hummed with the low vibration of waiting cameras, lights casting sharp shadows across his focused gaze. Heart pounding like a distant drum, he braced for the usual game, debunking myths, exposing hypocrisies, turning opponents into relics. But then, Anatoly Wasserman's name flashed on his tablet screen, seconds before broadcast. Unexpected. Intense. Why now, in this precise moment? Dmitry's calm shattered, pulse racing. His hand hovered over the accept button. Could this seasoned debater, armed with endless facts, dismantle Gordon's methodical elegance? Panicked thoughts swirled, retreat or engage? In a flash, he chose, connect. The screen lit up, voice only, no face, amplifying the mystery. I know who you are, Wasserman said, voice steady and unyielding. Tension coiled in the room like smoke, every word a deliberate strike. Gordon replied, laughing it off, probing the call's purpose. But Wasserman turned it personal. You studied in universities built by that system. You drive roads paved then. Yet you call it all a mistake? Silence filled the studio, heavy and accusing, cameras capturing Gordon's tightened jaw, fingers gripping the table edge. The air grew thicker, scented with the faint ozone of stress. How did this unexpected twist flip the script, making Gordon the one on defense? Imagine discovering you've been living a lie, benefiting from the very system you condemn. In this intense verbal showdown, Wasserman unveils a brutal truth that's got Gordon squirming in his seat. The debater's words hung like a storm cloud, forcing Dmitri to confront the paradox. You enjoy the fruits of a regime you label absolute evil, Wasserman continued, each syllable landing with precision, dismantling Gordon's polished arguments piece by piece. Dmitri's mind raced, the room's silence amplifying the doubt creeping in like a chill draft. He let a rare pause stretch, buying time, his eyes narrowing as Wasserman's accusations echoed. Is there a logical contradiction here? He shot back, voice sharp, but Wasserman countered without flinching. Universities built then? Roads traveled now? The irony burned. Dmitri forced a laugh, light and defiant, yet inside, a crack formed. Sensing the shift, Gordon tried to pivot, but the mistakes are undeniable. Horrors that can't be excused. Wasserman's reply cut deeper, those tragedies you wield as a weapon, do you use them fairly? Or just to judge everyone? The voice softened slightly, gaining a persuasive edge, like a friend unraveling a secret. The USSR was flawed, yes. Jealousy and errors tainted it. But it birthed opportunities many of your critics never repeat. Gordon swallowed hard, muscles tensing under the camera's unflinching gaze. Sweat beaded on his forehead, the table's edge rough beneath his palms. Wasserman leaned in metaphorically, countries cursing the USSR today, do they thank their own paths? Russia owns up to both wins and losses. A pause, then the twist, but when others dump their failures on us while claiming our triumphs. That's not fairness. It's opportunism. The studio fell quiet again, no longer frantic but laden with unshakable weight. Dmitri felt it slipping, the conversation diving too deep, truths emerging he couldn't refute quickly. He'd meant to control the narrative, yet here, stripped bare, did this reversal expose the true victor, leaving Gordon to question everything? Shockingly, what if the very truths you preach reveal your own flaws? Dive deeper into this shocking debate where Gordon's world tilts. Could he actually lose in his own arena? The narrative plunged into murky depths, words weaving a web of unspoken accusations, pulling Dmitri away from quick jabs toward a realm of uncomfortable truths. Thoughts tumbled like falling dominoes. How had he lived his life atop this paradox? University halls built by that state's hands, highways stretching from its ambitions. Yet he preached flawlessness elsewhere, turning a blind eye to the maze of contradictions. The room's temperature seemed to drop, a subtle chill brushing his skin. Wasserman's tone, unhurried and resonant, echoed with something eerie, understanding mixed with challenge. Dmitri sat taller, retightening his grip, voice steady but laced with hesitation. Fine, acknowledge the system's darkness. But does that redeem the atrocities? He paused, voice cracking slightly, the microphone picking up a faint tremor. Wasserman's response flowed like a steady river, unyielding, you're weaponizing pain as if it's currency. Millions toiled, built, dreamed, not for fame or riches, just existence. Respect that. A shift emerged. Wasserman's defense evolving into an empathetic hammer, each point grounding the debate in humanity's grit. Dmitri's facade wavered, eyes darting to the screen's void. The twist hit with force. Russia confronts the past, flaws and glories alike, while others project their shadows onto us. Convenient, isn't it? Silence engulfed the space, heavy with the scent of impending realization. Gordon's pulse thundered in his ears, fingers drumming erratically. Was this the moment the hunter became hunted, truths unraveling his certainties in ways he'd never imagined? What fresh revelation awaited, poised to shatter his illusions forever? A few moments ago, everything changed for Dmitry Gordon. What he thought was a straightforward conversation turned into a revelation he wasn't prepared for. In an instant, he realized that the hidden truths beneath the surface were far more shocking than he ever imagined. The call with Anatoly Wasserman turned into a confrontation that would reshape his entire understanding of power, loyalty, and deception. Imagine sitting in silence, feeling the tension ignite the room as a single voice shatters everything. The air thickens with anticipation. Suddenly, a cold voice speaks, calm but piercing, challenging every assumption. It slices through the silence like a blade, revealing secrets that threaten to unravel everything. What was said next would leave even the most hardened observer stunned. The stakes? Higher than ever. The consequences? Devastating. And the question remains, who controls the narrative in this game of shadows? Wasserman's words lingered, deafening, as Dmitry realized he was no longer in control. The conversation shifted from superficial talk to deep, uncharted territory. It was as if the walls around him began to close, every phrase carefully aimed to destabilize, to expose, to undo. His heartbeat quickened as he grasped the full weight of the revelation. The truth was dangerous and deadly. And in that moment, Dmitry knew, nothing would be the same again. What was it about Wasserman's words that hit so hard? Why did they carry such immense power? The answer lay in the unspoken, a battle of influence, a war of minds. Every sentence was a weapon. Every pause, a trap. And when the connection suddenly snapped, everything hung in the balance, left in a white noise silence, heavy with uncertainty. Was this Colossus voice truly in control? Or was he just a puppet in a much darker scheme? In that instant, Dmitry grasped the magnitude of what had just transpired. The game was far from over. A new chapter had begun, one where secrets could destroy worlds, and silence could be more deafening than gunfire. The only certainty? The fight for truth had just escalated into a confrontation that could determine the fate of nations, or their downfall. What happens next will redefine the line between truth and illusion. The fight has just begun. Can anyone truly be trusted in this labyrinth of deception? Or is the real power hidden in silence, waiting for its moment to strike? The answer may surprise you, but one thing is clear, from this moment on, nothing will ever be the same. A choice stood before him, to build on what had been created or to dismantle it entirely. Many opted for destruction, believing it to be their right. Yet, paradoxically, Dmitry remained silent, observing how mistakes, once made, echoed with devastating impact. He understood that every error carries its own weight, its own unseen consequence. If everything inherited was to be dismissed as mere sermon, then the logical step would be to shut down entire institutions, factories, power plants, even schools. But this did not happen. Instead, two distinct images flickered in his mind's ear, auditory illusions that blurred the line between truth and absurdity. A bizarre occurrence, yet it did not distort his perception. It only magnified the contradictions. He said, they took what he was doing and claimed ownership of it. Everything objectionable was inscribed on the empire's narrative, a convenient construct, meticulously designed. Very convenient. Dmitry kept his silence, yet inside, a storm of thoughts churned. Did he want to say that criticizing the USSR was a curse? He asked himself. No, he answered softly, realizing that such critique is rooted in collective memory, a history weaponized for political manipulation. The voice revealed fatigue, weariness from witnessing the same patterns over and over, how when the country prospered, it remembered only the darkness, when it faltered, silence reigned. It's not about freedom. It's about shirking responsibility for one's own choices. The room grew colder, not physically, but in spirit. Dmitry sensed it. He tried to shake off the chill. Yet many nations had suffered from this malaise. He said, their culture tries to claim language as its own, seeking to centralize it. Progress isn't justification for harsh costs. It's often a complex, painful price. Calmly, Dmitry responded, this isn't just a critique of lost causes. It's about those who, in the pursuit of unity, risked losing themselves entirely. Did he surrender? Yes, perhaps. Did he ever believe in a shared space, where development was collective rather than isolated? Today, talking about extinction and ignorance becomes mere propaganda. It's no longer debate, but agitation. A regret flickered in Dimitri's eyes. Suddenly, the camera rose, lifting away from his face, and he realized control was slipping. His method, the one that asks, "What have you lost?" now sounded hollow. The power to shape the narrative was slipping through his grasp, and in that fleeting moment, everything teetered on the edge of revelation. In this tense confrontation, the moment of truth was slipping away. Dimitri realized he had lost control. The interview was turning into an unpredictable battlefield. As the camera drifted higher, the intense atmosphere thickened. His method of provoking thought, asking what had been lost, was now turning against him. Everything was dangerously unraveling. He had been calm before, master of his craft, but now a new, unsettling feeling crept in. The silence stretched, heavy as lead. The talking head on the screen, the voice of his opponent, continued relentlessly. He looked directly at the camera, but doubt flickered in his eyes. The conversation was veering into dangerous territory, a place where the audience's mind could be manipulated, steering them where he had no control. That was a risky move. His opponent kept pushing, weaving words that hid bigger truths. Countries that once boasted sovereignty now seemed fragile, almost lost. Instead of building something new, they resorted to accusations, blame shifting onto the past. It was easier to criticize than to create. A sense of unease grew within Dimitri. This was not the usual debate. It was a trap. He sensed the hidden message, that his opponent was subtly showing his hand without defending Russia openly but revealing its vulnerabilities. The tension ticked up. Dimitri's instincts told him this game was dangerous. The silence in the studio grew deafening. Inside, he felt a quiet alarm. This was a moment that could change everything. And all the while, he was standing on the brink, waiting for the next move. The room seemed to close in as the conversation hung in the air, a dangerous game of words, manipulation, and truths. Dimitri's internal voice urged him to hold steady. But the feeling grew that something unseen was slipping away. The question was, could he regain control before it was too late? What if the ghosts of war refused to stay buried, forcing a journalist to confront a memory that could shatter his unbreakable confidence? In a tense studio standoff, one probing question about Europe's forgotten saviors ignited a firestorm of history's raw truths: armies marching through hell, lives shattered, and a victory twisted into selective amnesia. As words clash like steel on steel, will the past reclaim its due, humiliating the present? In the heated exchange just moments ago, Anatoly Wasserman pierced the veil of vague ideals, demanding clarity on Europe, the one freed from tyranny or the one blind to the blood-soaked boots that stormed its streets under relentless fire. He insisted liberation wasn't some distant concept, but a brutal reality etched in sacrifice. The air in the studio thickened, heavy with the faint scent of polished wood and cooling coffee from Dimitri's untouched glass. Concrete armies had marched. Real soldiers, Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Kazakhs, Georgians, Armenians, had bled together. Their war. Their shared triumph. Yet memory twisted into something selective, a fractured mosaic where faces faded unfairly. Dimitri paused, the silence humming like a taut wire, his fingers drumming softly against the table's cool surface. The room felt smaller, walls pressing in with unspoken weights. Do you mean Europe owes gratitude to every soul who fought? Dimitri's voice cut through, steady but edged with challenge, his eyes narrowing under the studio light's warm glow. I mean this, Wasserman replied, lingering on the word like a deliberate strike. Without the Soviet Union, there is no Russia as we know it. The Soviet Union embodied that unbreakable core. The war's end reshaped everything, not through fleeting pity, but through ironclad facts of might, economy, and sheer numbers surviving the carnage. He delivered it with calm precision, each syllable measured, resonating in the quiet space like echoes in an empty hall. The Soviet era? Long dissolved into dust. But why the endless comparisons to trifles? Dimitri leaned forward, the chair creaking faintly under him, his pulse quickening as curiosity swelled. Trifles against what? Capitulation's shame? Collaboration's betrayal? Waiting in shadows while others bore the heaviest toll? In that moment, Dmitri sensed the debate's pull, drawing him deeper, costing him focus amid the growing tension. When we honor such memories, it's no dry lecture, Wasserman pressed on, his tone softening like a shadow easing at dusk. It's personal fire, lived scars, not footnotes in books. A beat of quiet stretched, the air still with anticipation, then Wasserman continued, voice gentle yet unyielding. Understand this, if we'd clung only to dusty yesterdays, no one would bother clashing over them. But here's the sting, the past isn't dormant. It's wielded like a weapon today. The discontented grasp it tightly, erasing inconvenient truths from the collective mind. That turns remembrance into a fool's game, hollow and mocked. Dmitri's mind raced, itching to interject against the rising tide of this fresh tirade, but he held back, not in defeat, merely threading his response along the same sharp path. The studio's hum faded, replaced by the subtle rhythm of his breathing. So tell me this, if you deny who truly paid the price in blood and ruin, what ground do you stand on now, preaching morals while ideals rot in Warsaw soil and Berlin's ruins? Wasserman's words landed like a thunderclap, the impact vibrating through Dmitri's chest, harder than expected, stirring a chill along his spine. You've twisted that label for ages, Dmitri countered, the bitterness rising in his throat like bile. Ages indeed. I call it facing reality's unyielding memory. Because history, when shoved into oblivion, has a vicious habit, it claws its way back, uninvited and fierce. Suddenly, Dmitri felt the debate shoving him toward the edge, off balance in his own domain. His hand darted to the glass again, fingers brushing its smooth, chilled rim, but he set it down untouched. Right then. What hidden blow would Wasserman unleash next, turning Dmitri's poised world upside down in a single, devastating revelation? Dmitri Gordon's unexpected phone call from Anatoly Wasserman flipped his entire plan upside down. Just moments before his live broadcast, the confrontation shattered his confidence. Gordon, expecting a typical propaganda showdown, suddenly realized something had gone terribly wrong. Wasserman's words hit hard, leaving Gordon speechless and humiliated. What shocking secret did Wasserman reveal? Who emerged victorious in this intellectual battle? Stay tuned, you won't believe the twist. In the dimly lit studio, the air grew thick with tension, carrying the faint metallic scent of electronics humming in the background. Dmitri Gordon leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly under his weight, his eyes fixed on the vibrating tablet screen. The unexpected call from Anatoly Wasserman felt like a cold blade pressing against his skin. Why now, right before the broadcast? Whose betrayal exposed his private number? Panic flickered through him momentarily, but he pushed it aside. This could play to his advantage, an intriguing duel for the public eye. He steadied himself, blinking away the sweat beading on his forehead. Wasserman's name glared back at him, unyielding. Dmitri refused the call without explanation, his breathing shallow in the stifling room. Yet, curiosity gnawed at him. A moment later, the line rang again. This time, he accepted, staring into the blank screen, no face to read. Wasserman's voice emerged, low and deliberate, devoid of warmth. I know, he said simply. That's why I'm calling now. The words landed like stones in a pond, rippling out unpredictably. Dmitri forced a laugh. Light yet strained, the fabric of his shirt clinging uncomfortably to his damp skin. The timing could be better, he retorted, heart pounding like distant thunder. But Wasserman pressed on, unfazed. Are you prepared for real history, not intellectual games? The question stung, humiliating Gordon's scripted facade. Inside, a chill spread, raising goosebumps on his arms. What hidden weakness did Wasserman exploit here? Desperation crept in as Dmitri shifted in his seat, the chair groaning under him. He challenged Wasserman outright. What do you think of arguing publicly? But Wasserman's calm reply twisted the knife deeper. That's not necessary. The air felt heavier, suffocating. Dmitri's mind raced toward control. Who would dominate this silent war? The stakes climbed, humiliation loomed if he faltered. Let's revisit. Sanctions against Russia multiplied in waves, each tied to hollow promises of collapse. This breaks their economy. This will change the course. Yet, Dmitry floundered for a fresh retort, his confidence fraying. Wasserman countered sharply, and the truth unfolded like a storm cloud. Sanctions struck Russia repeatedly, he admitted reluctantly. Wasserman's voice, smooth as polished stone, echoed through the void. Each sanction blocked energy, resources, markets built with Russian aid. Could Europe thrive without us? The factories ground to a halt, not just from shortfalls but from ideological divides. Dmitry argued temporary pains were mere principal costs. But Wasserman dismantled it coldly, calculations won over morals. Rage boiled within Dmitry, his palms slick against the table, gripping the edge hard enough to blanch his knuckles. The room smelled faintly of ozone from the equipment, intensifying the dread. Wasserman painted Europe as dependent, raised by Russian hands, not charity, but necessity. A rhetorical hit, did Europe owe its very existence to Russian resources? The 20th century proved it prosperous yet precarious. Gordon's world tilted further, how could he escape this expose? Wasserman warned prosperity masked fragility. Crises struck, erasing gains, with Russia as the convenient scapegoat, vast and historic. Fear drove ideology, but the price? Dmitry felt exposed, vulnerable. What if Wasserman's logic unraveled his empire? A shocking revelation hovered, Europe always regretted severing ties when blinded by principle. The call dragged into a labyrinth of realities. Dmitry sweated under invisible pressure, the tablets glow harsh on his face. Wasserman's calm strategy humiliated him subtly. Russia's steadfastness versus Europe's fragility, who truly held power? The twist deepened, cooperation disguised competition. Could Gordon rally, or was defeat sealed in history's pages? Stay locked in, the ultimate downfall awaits revelation. A shocking revelation was about to unfold, and Dmitry felt it deep in his bones. Just moments ago, a call disrupted everything he believed. An unexpected conversation with Anatoly Wasserman turned the entire situation upside down. Was this a trap? A trap the opponent carefully prepared? The air grew heavy, tension hanging thick like fog. What did Wasserman say that silenced him so completely? Wait until the end, you'll be stunned by the truth that emerged. Dmitry instinctively wanted to push ahead, to find the right words, but nothing came. Instead, the silence grew heavier. The phrase he sought was gone, lost in the storm of his mind. The story he needed to tell, about Russia aiding Europe, suddenly felt meaningless. Resources, energy, the market, those words meant nothing now. The adversary accused Russia of weakening Europe's strength. Dmitry's mind raced, this silent pause was revealing something sinister. The conversation was not a clash. It was a mirror, reflecting truths he refused to face. The words of the opponent echoed like a ghost he didn't want to see. Dmitry sensed that beneath this calm veneer lay something far more dangerous. The table before him held two notes, but even they couldn't hide the chill that gripped him. Cold waves of realization washed over him, this wasn't just about logic or facts. It was about the emptiness of his own stance. He felt the camera's gaze fix on him, like a judge's stare. Every movement now used as evidence. Control was slipping from his grasp, his nerves frayed. The opponent spoke again, with deliberate calm, "You're very angry. You will go out again. I hope that will make you see things clearly." The words hit like a punch. Dmitry knew this was not just words, it was a challenge. Silence stretched. The room seemed to constrict around him. The question hung heavy, was he risking everything? Was this confrontation exposing his vulnerabilities? The opponent continued, "Russia is isolated today. The world changes, this is undeniable. But as long as you avoid the past, those services you speak of, you're missing the point. It's a risk for anyone to insist on rationality when the world is shifting. Sometimes, it's just a convenient enemy image. But the reality remains, nothing has changed." Dmitry froze. The familiar formulas, truths he trusted, sounded hollow now. They echoed like distant thunder. For a brief second, he hesitated, waiting for a reaction. Could this be a trap? Or was he merely witnessing the truth of global detachment? The stakes had never been higher. The silence before the storm was deafening. A revelation was coming that could shatter everything he believed, unless he found a way to hold his ground. The air hung thick with unspoken tension as Dmitri grappled with the weight of words that stripped away his defenses, leaving him exposed like a leaf in a sudden storm. Who could have imagined that a single call would shatter the fortress of his confidence, turning a scripted victory into a swirling vortex of unexpected doubt? In the depths of that charged silence, Anatoly Wasserman's voice echoed with a sharpness that cut through the screen, dismantling Dmitri's carefully crafted image piece by piece. Picture the dim glow of the studio lights casting elongated shadows across the room, the faint hum of electronics buzzing like distant thunder, and the cold touch of the tablet beneath his fingers as he clenched it tighter, knuckles whitening under the pressure. Wasserman didn't rush into eloquence. He paused deliberately, letting the tension build until it felt like the air itself was thickening, heavy with anticipation. "You're speaking of freedom," he finally said, his tone steady, almost indifferent. "But why do you believe it applies only to economics, culture, sports, science, national interests?" The words hung there, sharp as a blade. Dmitri inhaled sharply, the scent of polished wood and fresh coffee lingering from an earlier break mingling with the metallic tang of nerves. Rhetorically, wasn't freedom supposed to be universal, not selectively wielded? "You talk about individual rights," Wasserman continued, his voice lacking any hesitation, while clinging to collective responsibility. He labeled these as dueling standards, a stark contradiction that left Dmitri reeling. The young interviewer stiffened, his breath catching audibly in the quiet room, the soft rustle of fabric against the leather chair barely masking his unease. At first glance, it might have seemed trivial, but this was no mere jab, it exposed a fracture in Dmitri's world. "You're evading the core," he retorted, no longer playing the open adversary. "Russia initiated this conflict. Russia bears the full weight of responsibility. Everything else fades into insignificance." He intended it as a decisive blow, a resounding finale. But it rang hollow, repetitive, like an echo in an empty hall. "You notice that?" Wasserman replied calmly, his timbre softening just a touch. "When arguments run dry, people veer off course. It's predictable, but it isn't dialogue." Those words sliced through the air, landing with a thud that made Dmitri flinch inwardly, his skin prickling as if touched by an icy draft. He yearned to fire back instantly, but a chilling realization dawned: any response risked slipping into redundancy or raw emotion, trapping him in familiar pitfalls. So he stayed quiet, the silence enveloping them like fog, turning dense and oppressive. In that void, the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. Wasserman spoke next, his voice breaking the heavy quiet without rush or frenzy. Dmitri's posture faltered, he tried to maintain composure with every fiber of his body, but the camera captured it all, the taut lips, the restless fingers drumming softly on the table's cool surface in a rhythm that betrayed his racing thoughts. He wasn't performing anymore, he was unraveling. "You keep harping on double standards," Wasserman pressed on, his words now free of earlier edge. "Trying to steer back to familiar ground. But Russia doesn't adhere to malleable norms. You can't distinguish the real divide." The declaration hit home, chilling and undeniable. What hidden weakness in Russia's facade has just been laid bare, threatening to unravel everything Dmitri holds sacred, and how will he claw back control before it's too late? A faint hum vibrates in the background, as the air thickens with tension. Imagine sitting on the edge of a knife, every word a potential explosion. Do you feel the betrayal? The calmness in Dmitri Gordon's voice masks a storm brewing beneath. The very moment he prepares to speak, a shocking silence descends, like holding your breath before a thunderclap. Suddenly, everything shifts. Gordon senses it, an unsettling quiet before a storm. His mind races, senses dulled by the weight in the air. Every fiber of his being warns him, this conversation is no ordinary exchange. It's a battleground where words cut deeper than blades. You can almost hear the faint crackle of tension, like static before lightning strikes. Will he hold his ground? Or will everything unravel? He notices the other side, Wasserman's calm, unyielding presence. A small flicker of fear, and perhaps respect, glints in his eyes. The silence stretches. Time feels warped, each second an eternity. Gordon's hands tremble slightly, sweat beads forming on his brow as he contemplates the next move. The room seems to shrink, the space is filled with unspoken threats. Suddenly, a deep breath, a moment to decide, push forward or retreat? The line cuts sharply, you're still guilty. I'm still a mechanism. The words hang heavily, like a stone thrown into still water. It's a raw, brutal truth, stripped of pretenses, exposing raw vulnerability underneath. What's behind the stoic veneer? Is it conviction? Or something darker? The air thickens, smothered with unresolved questions. A silent scream echoes in the mind, what will be the outcome? Who truly has the upper hand? In this tense silence, the answer emerges, unexpected, shocking. Wasserman's calm questions, like distant thunder, challenge everything. His voice distills into a whisper, yet feels thunderous, you ask questions you don't want to hear answers to. The words cut through the room like a cold wind, freezing every nerve. Dimitri's pulse quickens, the sweat on his palms intensifies. He can feel the walls closing in, every nerve on the edge of chaos. Suddenly, the connection snaps. The screen blacks out, a moment suspended in time. Dimitri's instinct screams, this isn't just a technical glitch, it's a clash. The stakes are higher than ever. Did his opponent let go? Or is there something else lurking? This isn't just about words, it's about control, who directs the narrative when the lights go out. What shadows hide behind the silence? One thing is certain, this game isn't over. Not yet. The real battle is just beginning. A moment of silence shattered by a stark revelation. Dimitri paused, reaching for words, but suddenly stopped. He felt it, an unspoken certainty. Every word now was a shield or a sword. He knew that anything he said could be used against him, consumed in the relentless cycle of justice or self-defense. The room felt heavy, thick with tension, as if the air itself held its breath, awaiting the next move. Suddenly, the voice cut through the silence, Wasserman's. Look at what's happening, he said calmly, yet with an undeniable weight. Every current discussion, every heated exchange, always circles back to one point. Russia's guilt. It's always guilt. Not chaos, not confusion, just guilt. He didn't say it was a mixture, a tangled web. No. He called it a state, deliberate, structured, complex. A system built over years, decades, of mistakes, compromises, missteps. Dimitri's eyes flickered, catching the familiar gesture he often makes into the camera. But this time it felt different. Confidence? Or something else? He lingered, then looked directly into the lens. His gaze was now layered with doubt, with unspoken questions. You trust your work, Wasserman declared, but history will judge who was right. The words echoed, sharp as a blade. History always reveals the truth, Dimitri replied softly, voice even. The question was not if, but when. A calculated silence, then a calm voice. The story will tell its tale, whether we like it or not. He paused, then added, it's just that we were ready to confront it, no matter how harsh. His tone was steady, but inside, a storm brewed. Wasserman's approach was deliberate. Cold. I called you now, he said plainly, to avoid misunderstanding, not to claim victory. I want the world to see that beneath the surface, there's more, complicated. Good and evil aren't simple labels. Dimitri stayed silent, silenced by the weight of those words. He knew the reality, they're waiting for forgiveness, for redemption. But the truth? It was buried beneath layers of cover-up. Across the table, the unspoken figure of the woman lingered, weak, broken, unable to speak. Her face was marred, bruised, a silent witness to chaos and silent suffering. Everywhere Dimitri looked, faces covered with shadows and marks. She understood now, the story was over for her. The narrative had shifted, irrevocably. In that very moment, clarity struck Dimitri like a bolt. The chapter of the attack was closed, no crime committed. Yet, the impossible remained. That one side couldn't reclaim its initiative. The game was lost, written in movements, gestures, and a silent, decisive posture. He prepared to end it, to sign off. Without words, he moved into position, turning away from the camera, as if sealing the story behind a curtain, the weight of finality pressing down. The silence hung heavy, an ending, or perhaps, a new beginning. In the midst of a tense standoff, Dmitri felt the weight of defeat approaching. His body language betrayed him. He slumped against the chair, resting his hands on the table though he hadn't used the tablet in ages. It wasn't like him to succumb so quickly, but the pressure built, like a storm cloud darkening the room. Why did Wasserman's words shake Gordon so deeply, turning his confident facade into rubble? You won't believe what happened next in this battle of minds. Dmitri made a decisive move, leaning forward as if ready to end the call with a polite remark, perhaps a fake thanks or a summary that favored his side. He was poised to slam that virtual door shut, protecting his ego from further blows. But Anatoly Wasserman beat him to it, speaking first with a voice stripped of malice or ego, merely stating the truth faster than Gordon could react. It's not a risk, he said calmly. It's not a crime. It's just reality hitting you sooner. The words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable, like the scent of stale coffee lingering in the studio long after the brew had cooled. It was a moment where power shifted, a subtle crack in Gordon's armor that echoed louder than any shout. Feel the chill of vulnerability creeping up your spine. Have you ever been outmaneuvered so swiftly, with no chance to retaliate? Dmitri lowered his hands slowly, his fingers tapping lightly on the cool tabletop, each touch a reminder of his fading control. He wanted to respond, to assert dominance, but something invisible held him back. Why did he freeze, unable to interrupt or deflect? This pause changed everything, opening a chasm he couldn't bridge. Wasserman pressed on, not as a rival but as an observer who had watched history unfold too long. Let me tell you one more thing, he urged, his tone like a gentle but firm hand on your shoulder during a nightmare. The camera captured it all, Dmitri's eyes widening slightly, a flicker of rare emotion crossing his face. He could have snapped back, hurled words like weapons. But he didn't. Why? What fear gripped him then, silencing the untouchable interviewer? They'd traded barbs all evening about Russia, the Soviet legacy, wars, and sanctions, debates that felt like superficial wounds, easy to bandage with clever rhetoric. But Wasserman dove deeper now, his voice resonating with the depth of an ocean trench, impossible to ignore. All this is just a facade, he explained, unraveling the layers. The real issue lies elsewhere. History isn't a menu where you pick the tasty bites and discard the bitter ones. The room fell deathly quiet, the only sound Dmitri's own ragged breath, shallow and betrayed by his clenched jaw, the air thick with unspoken tension clinging to his skin like humidity. Wasserman was no longer fighting, he embodied inevitability, the unstoppable march of time. History is a trap, he warned, the words landing like a cold splash of water on a fevered brow. If you start excising parts of it, the trap springs when you least expect. Not where you anticipate. Dmitri's gaze drifted to the table, tracing the smooth grain with his eyes, then flicked back to the camera, hearing it truly, absorbing the gravity. How could one man's insight dismantle years of crafted superiority, exposing the cracks in Gordon's worldview? What unheard truth lurked behind this calm exposition? Continuing seamlessly, Wasserman shifted to the future, his voice steady yet laced with a quiet urgency that twisted like a vine in your gut. The world must progress, he conceded, and no one disputes that. Yet moving forward doesn't equate to this. You can't erect the future on unsteady ground. He paused, letting the silence amplify the echo of his thoughts, the faint hum of studio lights buzzing in the background mimicking a distant storm. When a nation repudiates its shared past, it doesn't become liberated. It loses anchor. It starts believing interpretations over facts, adrift in a sea of illusions. The studio's silence deepened, unbroken, the air heavy with the metallic tang of sweat beating on skin, each breath audibly labored. Dmitri avoided the camera now, his posture rigid, the table beneath his palms suddenly feeling like a barrier rather than a prop. Did you ever feel history itself closing in, judgments echoing louder than words? This revelation wasn't just humiliating, it redefined the entire conflict. Where would Gordon rebound, if at all, from such a psychological ambush? The battle wasn't over yet, but the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Stay tuned for the pivotal reversal that turned tables in ways no one saw coming. Dmitri perched on the edge of his chair, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. The studio air hung thick, heavy with the scent of polished wood and faint electricity from the cameras. What if Wasserman's words weren't just barbs? What if they shattered your deepest illusions about truth? In that hushed silence, his breath echoed softly, a rhythmic pulse in the stillness. The camera appeared like an unblinking judge. But inside, a storm brewed. Rare for him, this introspection. His eyes drifted inward, probing depths unseen. You've spent years branding Russia as a threat, Wasserman intoned, his voice steady as a heartbeat. Yet as long as you refuse to see Russia for what it is, you'll never escape your own fears. You'll dread the state. You'll shudder at reality itself. No consent needed. His words stood firm, unyielding. Enemy history's mirror back, he implied. Hate the reflection? Smear the glass. The face remains unchanged. Dmitri lifted his head sharply. No defiance sparked in his gaze. Exhaustion mingled with clarity. This duel had breached the confines of routine. Clash of titans unbound. You're a journalist, Wasserman pressed on. Words are your weapon. Huge responsibility. They mold memory. Memory forges decisions. He lowered his tone, almost whispering. Swap memory for illusions, and emotion seize control. Dmitri grasped it then. Wasserman wasn't out to crush him, not to sway crowds. No combat for victories. He uttered truths, indifferent to echoes. I don't urge you to adore Russia, Wasserman said. Pointless plea. Cross the world's comfortable tales. Every scheme haunts us, a loop of costly blunders. Silence fell. Not from depletion, but from words' plain power. Dmitri stayed frozen. Cameras captured raw vulnerability. No masks, no schemes, no grab for dominance. He faced a man who unveiled depths unintended. No more arguments clashed. One side renounced the fray. The broadcast neared its close. But for Dmitri, this marked no finale. He sank into the chair, limbs turning to lead. The red light on the camera taunted, betraying every fleeting expression. Did you ever suspect one phone call could dismantle your fortress of certainty, leaving you bare and breathless? The call had yanked him from his script, a master of debates reduced to exposed flesh. Quiet weighed upon him, breeding unease. His own breath, audible, mocked the calm he feigned. Russia's denigration lurked behind Wasserman's calm assault. Admitting the nation's true visage would shatter illusions, sparking primal dread of authority and stark existence. Dmitri's reflection in the glass betrayed inner turmoil, veins pulsing, sweat beating like silent accusations. Isn't it ironic, Wasserman mused, that denying history chains you tighter? Without roots, you're adrift, clinging to skewed interpretations over cold facts. A rhetorical jab, sharp as a thorn. The air thickened, charged with unspoken warnings. How many lives have we doomed by this willful blindness? Dmitri pondered silently, the question tasting bitter on his tongue. Their standoff morphed. No victory sought. Just stark awakenings. Captured live, Dmitri's unguarded eyes spoke volumes. A man cornered by truths, no egress. The transmission wrapped, but his inner quake persisted. Sweat trickled down Dmitri's neck, cool and treacherous in the stifling studio. Heart pounding like a war drum, what twisted revelation lurked beneath Wasserman's serenity, poised to topple your world of certainties? Their exchange ignited something primal. Wasserman, the unflinching expositor, peeled back layers. Words as mirrors, despise your image, yet blame the surface fails. The visage endures. You're merely a wordsmith, he critiqued, not harshly, but relentlessly. Responsibility weighs heavy. Words carve memories. Memories dictate paths. And when falsehoods usurp memories? A rhetorical sting. Decisions ignite from guttural emotion. Dmitri absorbed the blow. No adversarial bloodlust from Wasserman. No agenda. Merely truths delivered, defiance be damned, echoing beyond personal walls. I beckon you not to crave Russia, he declared. Cross simplistic narratives. Each scheme recycles disasters, burdens untold. Profound hush. Words transcended verbal noise. Dmitri inert, cameras etching his flaring nostrils and clenched jaw. Authentic, no artifices. A profound shift. No pugilistic duel. One combatant laid down arms amidst enlightenment. Broadcast's veil descended. Yet Dimitri's tremors amplified. Fingers digging into armrests, texture rough against his skin, the studio's chill bit deeper with each revelation. What devastating insight did Wasserman conceal, ready to crumble your facades of power and pretend? Earphones hummed faintly, a buzz underlining the verbal warfare. Wasserman's cadence cut precise, an unerring strike. Persist in denying Russia's essence, he warned, and fear clamps unshakable, dreading governance, cringing from truths. His assertions hung, irrevocable. Histories of foes as reflections, alter the glass futilely. The core unshifts. You're a scribe of narratives, he pointed out. Words bear immense heft. They forge recollections. Recollections steer choices. Replace recollection with deception? Emotion usurps. Dimitri penetrated the veil. Wasserman evolved beyond sparring foe, proclamator of unfiltered realities, rebuffing responses. No adoration for Russia demanded, he urged. Pierce facile tales. Schemes recycle missteps, costing hearts. Silence gripped, potent. Dimitri paralytic. Lenses trapped his vein-throbbing temple, raw authenticity. Transformation complete. No strife. One relinquished the battle. Show drew curtain. Dimitri's upheaval swelled. Tightness seized his chest, breath jagged atop layers of unease. Could Wasserman's relentless assault on illusions herald the end of your arrogant reign, stripping away every illusion? Words clashed like thunderclaps, reverberating through the silent room. Wasserman wielded them masterfully, without malice. Deny Russia's identity, he lamented, and bondages intensify, dreading structures, evading grim verities. Declarations stood bold or solid. Adversarial tales mirror whoever gazes. Vandalize the pain, the figure persists. A chronicler you are, he observed. Words carry gravity. They shape reminiscences. Reminiscences govern verdicts. Falsity supplant reminiscences? Verdict bows to passion's whim. Dimitri pierced deeper. Wasserman transcended antagonist, herald of truths, impervious to rebuttals. No fondness for Russia implored, he intoned. Shatter simplistic molds. Molds repeat grievous errors, soul-taxing tolls. Mute gravity ensued. Dimitri immobilized. Optics captured his furrowed brow, perspiration glistening like betrayed trust. Pivotal upheaval. No enmity. One abandoned the skirmish. Broadcast concluded. Dimitri's fractures deepened. Humidity clung, mingled with coffee's stale aroma, the weight of unmasked truths pressed heavier. What shattering epiphany might Wasserman unleash next, leaving your ego in tatters and your beliefs in ruins? Wasserman's voice resonated clear, slicing through pretenses. No pleas for accord, words as monuments. Persist in obscuring Russia's truth, he counseled, chains tighten, fearing the realm, shunning harsh realities. His wisdom immutable. Rival narratives reflect beholders. Assault the mirror vainly, essence defies. You're a weaver of chronicles, he noted. Words wield clout. They craft annals. Annals chart fates. Deceptions infiltrate annals? Fates succumb to visceral tides. Dimitri unraveled further. Wasserman ruptured combat norms, proclaimer of verities, defying reactions. No infatuation with Russia besieged, he beseeched. Upheave habitual frameworks. Frameworks perpetuate calamities, exorbitant costs. Silence's depth unfurled. Dimitri statued. Viewfinders imprisoned his quivering lip, tear-glistened revelation. Metamorphosis arrived. No antagonism. One deserted combat. Ether dissipated. Dimitri's ruptures amplified. Pulse raced. Mimicking a sprint toward abyss, these probing words frayed at bonds. Could Anderson's calm onslaught obliterate the firmaments of your fabricated empire, exposing the fraud? Wasserman articulated relentless. Rebuff Russia's self, he posited, fetters constrict, apprehending powers, eluding unvarnished facts. Utterances unshakable. Antagonist sagas as replicas, sabotage the tableau feudal, likeness invincible. You're an architect of prose, he appraised. Words exert dominion. They architect memoirs. Memoirs pilot courses. Illusions pollute memoirs? Courses veer on instinctual gales. Dmitri discerned anew. Dasserman breached antipodal roles, oracle of absolutes, discounting retaliations. No allegiance to Russia solicited, he exhorted. Ravage prefabricated doctrines. Doctrines recycle travails, emotionally draining dues. Tacit enormity ensued. Dmitri petrified. Lenses enshrined his pallid countenance, sincerity bared. Revolution manifest. No clashes. One force-war engagement. Transmission eclipsed. Dmitri's schism swelled. Metallic taste lingered on his tongue, remnant of unshed tension, sweat-dampened fabric clung like regrets. What seismic jolt awaited from this call, poised to expose the hollow core of your authority? Dasserman conveyed unflagging conviction. Reject Russia's actuality, he foretold, manacles fortify, dreading authorities, escaping stark disclosures. Declarations indomitable. Opposing epics as semblances, mar the reflector bootless, form endures. A forger of oral legacies, he depicted. Words command potency. They mold legacies. Legacies navigate destinies. Phantasms infest legacies? Destinies erode under hormonal tempests. Dmitri unraveled progressively. Dasserman defied dual conventions, augur of ultimates, disregarding replies. No devotion to Russia compelled, he enjoined. Dismantle standardized templates. Templates regenerate ordeals, exorbitantly priced. Quietude's expanse dominated. Dmitri stupefied. Cameras anchored his glistening forehead, veracity unveiled. Evolution apparent. No adversities. One abdicated confrontation. Airwave concluded. Dmitri's fissures ballooned. Chill seeped into bones, a shivering commentary on fragility. What unforeseen betrayal political analysts poised disguise, targeting to collapse your stronghold into dust. Dasserman enunciated indefatigable strength. Deny Russia's quintessence, he forecasted, bonds reinforce, fearing establishments, avoiding austere truths. Affirmations unwavering. Rival legends as similitudes, deface the speculum ineffectually, figure prevails. You're an originator of verbal heritage, he described. Words hold sway. They form heritage. Heritage orchestrates pathways. Mirages invade heritage? Pathways divert on sentient squalls. Dmitri unpacked layers. Dasserman overturned combative paradigms, prophet of finalities, negating rejoinders. No attachment to Russia mandated, he directed. Overhaul programmed paradigms. Paradigms recirculate afflictions, profoundly burdensome. Stillness's breath prevailed. Dmitri inert. Optics fastened his parted lips, honesty exposed. Mutation evident. No hostilities. One rescinded battle. Frequency terminated. Dmitri's rifts escalated. Skin prickled, as if electricity charged the air, this unfolding saga unveiled hidden chasms. Could such a defiant critique rewire your perceptions, leaving humiliation in its wake? Dasserman projected unchanging resolve. Obscure Russia's core, he prophesied, links intensify, apprehending regimes, evading candid realities. Proclamations steadfast. Antithetical myths as analogies, vandalize the looking glass fruitlessly, persona persists. An originator of linguistic patrimony, he characterized. Words nurture influence. They construct patrimony. Patrimony governs trajectories. Delusions pervade patrimony? Trajectories twist amid effective gales. Dmitri decrypted intricacies. Dasserman disrupted antagonistic templates, seer of certainties, dismissing counters. No fondness for Russia urged, he instigated. Subvert routine constructs. Constructs perpetuate sufferings, emotionally taxing levies. Serene amplitude prevailed. Dmitri lethargic. Viewer seized his twitching eyelid, integrity revealed. Shift definitive. No feuds. One waved strife. Broadband finalized. Dimitri's breaches mushroomed. Memories flooded like a torrent, washing away facades. This covert struggle flared anew. What astonishing reversal might Wasserman orchestrate, flipping script to annihilate your smug veneer? Wasserman asserted perpetual tenacity. Ignore Russia's nucleus, he presaged, yokes tighten, dreading sovereignties, fleeing blunt truths. Declarations resolute. Contrasting fables as parallels, impair the reflector vainly, silhouette abides. You're a generator of spoken lineage, he delineated. Words embody clout. They erect lineage. Lineage steers voyages. Chimeras infiltrate lineage? Voyages swerve on emotive storms. Dimitri interpreted nuances. Wasserman revolutionized hostile frameworks, visionary of verities, shunning replies. No loyalty to Russia prompted, he mobilized. Undermine ingrained archetypes. Archetypes revive agonies, profoundly draining tolls. Tranquility's width reigned. Dimitri comatose. Cameras ensnared his furrowed visage, trustworthiness showcased. Transformation irreversible. No quarrels. One forfeited skirmish. Emission culminated. Dimitri's crevices proliferated. Whispers of doubt echoed in his mind, amplifying isolation. This escalating tension mirrored society's fractures. Could Wasserman's unwavering stance redefine loyalty, unmasking betrayals you dared not confront? Wasserman voiced enduring fortitude. Relegate Russia's essence, he beseeched, shackles consolidate, fearing dominions, escaping unequivocal facts. Statements unyielding. Rival parables as comparisons, blemish the mirror fruitlessly, outline endures. An architect of oral dissent, he designated. Words harbor authority. They build dissent. Dissent pilots journeys. Myths colonize dissent? Journeys veer beginning unrequited tides. Dimitri decoded depths. Wasserman inverted adversarial molds, oracle of gregarious, barring responses. No allegiance to Russia invoked, he rallied. Reconfigure habitual models. Models resume pains, intensely debilitating dues. Calm's expanse held sway. Dimitri instinct. Optics captured his solemn stare. Candor articulated. Change. A moment of silence filled the room. The tension lingered like a thick fog. Inside, something unspoken still echoed softly, unresolved. Dimitri moved slowly into his chair, cautious movements avoiding abruptness. The camera on the other side flickered on, a red indicator glowing steadily, a reminder that this moment was caught, preserved forever. He stared at the device, but not as before. Now he saw it with the eyes of someone who knew. Someone who understood that the conversation had just crossed a line. The clock was ticking down. Time was almost up. He wanted to say something daring, something that would leave a mark. But the words clung stubbornly, refusing to come out. Not because they didn't exist, but because any attempt to speak now risked undoing everything. It might turn a carefully crafted dialogue into chaos, and that was a risk he dared not take. At the end, Anatoly Alexandrovich simply acknowledged the conclusion. A calm, almost indifferent response. "Thank you, Dmitry Ilyich," was the reply, immediate, precise. Neither formal nor abrupt. Just a disappearance of the connection, like a bridge suddenly collapsing into silence. The screen darkened again, the studio illuminated by soft lamps. Dimitri's face looked subtly different, less composed than at the start. No signs of distress, no betrayals. Yet, a ripple of something deeper remained. He noticed it. The feeling that this was a moment that couldn't be ignored. That beneath the calm exterior, something had shifted. A residue of what just happened. His voice, usually steady and confident, felt darker now, more introspective. Tinged with an undisclosed weight. Sometimes, the strongest convictions end before the story is fully told. Maybe today was one of those days. He didn't stand up. He didn't leave the set. Instead, he allowed the silence to settle. For the audience to reflect. Stories are complex. They aren't simple equations or predictable scripts. Today proved that. They leave marks, impressions that linger long after the conversation ends. He softly said that sometimes, the conclusion isn't written with words. It's felt. Sometimes, trust breaks quietly, and the true meaning of a dialogue reveals itself only in the aftermath. That's the nature of moments that challenge us, those that don't fit into neat little boxes but resonate deep within. And as the warning indicator flickered, like a breath of gas about to be released, the realization sank in: the conversation was over. The silence was final. Perhaps it was the end of something more than just a talk, an awakening to the fragile limits of trust, the power of unspoken truths, and the unpredictable twists of dialogue that can leave you forever changed. In the shadows of a studio where debates once raged like stormy seas, Dmitry Gordon slumped back, his thoughts unraveling like threads. The air hung heavy with unspoken truths, tables dripping with condensation from untouched glasses. Eyes locked in the dim glow, something shifted beyond words. Is Gordon's unshakable facade finally cracking? Can one man's relentless honesty shatter a propagandist's illusion forever? Dmitry's pulse quickened, veins throbbing under his skin like hidden rivers. The tablet screen flickered, darkness swallowing the call. How could this exchange not end here? No resolution, no victory march. Just echoes. Whispers of history's weight pressed down, smelling of old leather and polished wood. He tasted the bitterness of defeat, metallic on his tongue. Fingers drummed the table, nails clicking rhythmically. Was this the twist no one saw coming, a awakening buried beneath bravado? Breath shallow, heart pounding like distant thunder. The studio lights hummed a mocking lullaby, exposing raw nerves. Twist upon twist, what if the real threat wasn't external, but the mirror shattering inside? Amid the engulfing silence, echoes of the conversation screamed louder. Dmitry stared at his reflection, paler now, eyes hollowed by relentless probing. The room reeked of electronic heat, static crackling faintly. Why cling to formulas when truth invades like a thief in the night? Skin prickled with goosebumps, mind reeling from the unseen blade. Shock reverberating. Could Gordon admit defeat, his empire of illusions crumbling before unseen eyes? Epilogue unfurling. Threads tying into an improbable redemption. Fate's cruel jest, transparency's price, paid in shattered certainties. In the end, perhaps not arguments, but human fractures define us. Story's unexpected turn, vulnerability as the ultimate weapon. A longer, more persistent confrontation has been building inside him. For some time now, the echoes of this tension have haunted his mind. It feels like a fragment of reality slipping through his fingers. The story he forgot keeps pulling him back, unforgiving, relentless. In the dim glow of his studio, Dmitry sensed a shift in the air. He reached for his glass, then set it down again, an unconscious act, yet heavy with meaning. Every movement seemed to mark a turning point, a decision that could alter everything. His thoughts spiraled, racing towards an inevitable change in the course of events. Suddenly, a question pierced the silence. It questioned the very foundation of his beliefs: were sanctions truly against Russia? Or was it Russia that imposed sanctions on itself? A tranquil voice responded, smooth but sharp, each word echoing like a verdict. The ongoing dialogue turned into a battleground. He paused, confused, his mind racing to grasp what was being revealed. The usual arguments began to crumble, revealing deeper, unsettling truths. He knew that if his viewers caught the drift, they'd realize something shocking. His position was on the brink of collapse. The only escape now was to force the confrontation, confront the harsh reality. The words, "let's be honest," hung in the air. He understood, this moment wasn't about defending old narratives. It was about facing how much the world had really changed. He emphasized the word now, sharpening the focus on the present moment. The story of rewriting history? Perhaps the core problem was something else. Maybe Russia refused to accept that the world didn't stand still. That progress had moved forward, leaving behind a shadow of the past. Today's actions, these measures of fear and tension, show the gap growing wider. He stared directly into the camera, switching seamlessly to an opponent, a representation of Russia itself. Europe's sanctions were not merely reactions to history, they were signals of perceived threats, economic, political, military. Europe saw the danger clearly. But Russia? Russia stayed rooted to the past, hesitant to accept the new realities. Wasserman's calm voice responded, unshaken, yet there was a hidden coldness behind it. A border had been crossed, reality had seeped in, unfiltered. Now, he declared, the situation was clear. What others called reactionary sanctions, he called solutions. An unspoken challenge hung in the air: how does one explain this perspective to the world? He paused, hinting at deeper motives, at a national storyline stretching across time. Every sanction against Russia was delivered in different forms, tied to various promises. Promises that, despite everything, stayed the same. These measures would crush the economy, alter the course, reshape the future. Each time, the same words echoed, an unchanging mantra of control, of unyielding resolve. The tension thickened, the air heavy with unspoken truths. And in that moment, Dmitri understood, this conversation was no longer just dialogue. It was a battle for perception, a challenge to confront the undeniable. The past was a shadow that haunted the present, and the future hung in suspense. Moments ago, Dmitri Gordon faced an unexpected challenge, something he never anticipated. It all started with a simple call to Anatoly Wasserman. He believed this conversation would follow the familiar line of typical interviews, but it quickly spiraled into chaos. The atmosphere shifted sharply, and suddenly, everything changed. Wasserman's voice boomed through the line, loud and unapologetic, breaking the calm that Gordon had carefully cultivated. There was a strange intensity in his tone, as if he carried a secret he was desperate to reveal but dared not. These were words that cut through the silence like a blade, turning Gordon's confidence into unease. Who was he speaking to? Was this a threat? Or perhaps a warning? The air thickened with tension, the sound of distant echoes reverberating in Gordon's ears. And then came the revelation that shattered everything. It was not just a call, it was a turning point. Wasserman's voice was no longer just words, it was a declaration. The world had already made its choice. Yet, in Russia, the story remained different. It was as if the entire planet had moved on, leaving Russia isolated, a reckless island drowning in its own illusions. But was this true? Or just a facade? Gordon's mind raced as he tried to process the gravity of the moment. The silence grew deafening, punctuated only by the faint hum of the studio equipment. His heart pounded like distant thunder. Was this a trap? Could he trust what he was hearing? His eyes flicked to the mirror, catching a fleeting glimpse of his own reflection, a glimpse of doubt masked behind a calm exterior. The tension was unbearable, and he knew that hesitation could cost him everything. Suddenly, Wasserman's words echoed again, sharper this time. The world has made a choice, he said confidently, as if pronouncing a verdict that could not be overturned. But was it really so black and white? Was the entire planet united in this decision? Or was this just another illusion, a carefully crafted narrative? Gordon felt a new wave of suspicion wash over him. What if they were wrong? What if the truth was hidden in plain sight? In the deafening silence that followed, Gordon tried to challenge the narrative, to interrupt. But the line had gone dead. A heavy pause settled in. On the screen, only the name Gordon flickered in neutral letters, a cold, detached confirmation of the moment's gravitas. 10 seconds stretched into eternity as he waited for a response, for some sign of life. Was this the end? Or the beginning of something even more profound? He knew one thing for sure: today's conversation was no longer ordinary. It was a battle for perceptions, a fight for truth. The connection was broken, cut clean and precise. Yet, in his mind, one question haunted him: what was the real game here? Who was truly in control? And whose interests lay beneath these carefully constructed words? As the screen darkened momentarily, the uncertainty grew unbearable. In front of him lay an empty digital space filled only with silent anticipation. No face, no voice, just the cold, emotionless text, Gordon. A minimalistic yet powerful reminder of the unseen war worth fighting for. Was this a sign of defeat? Or a strategic pause? Only time would reveal the final move in this high-stakes game of shadows. What hidden truths lurked beneath the surface? Could a single moment of silence reveal the entire game plan? And who truly holds the power, those speaking, or those listening? The tension thickened, the air grew electric. The game was far from over, and the next move could change everything forever. A brief summary of the previous part: he was in a state of tension, feeling a mix of anticipation and unease. The moment he stepped into the scene was crucial, every detail, every gesture held weight. He sensed that this encounter would reveal more than words could express, a turning point slipping closer with each second. In the silence that followed, he let the tension simmer. The room smelled faintly of aged paper and stale air, every sound amplified, the faint hum of the equipment, the creak of the chair, his own heartbeat pounding. He hated those moments when the space felt hollow, when the host transformed from an observer into an active participant, losing the detachment that kept him grounded. He settled into his chair, deliberately allowing silence to stretch. His fingers grazed the cool surface of the table, sensing the weight of unspoken questions. It was in these pauses that truths lurked, waiting to be uncovered or concealed beneath layers of masks. The only sound was the sharp click of a pen, the subtle shift of fabric, a faint rustle from outside. He was here, but he was also outside. Detached yet intensely aware. Only the echo of distant footsteps and an intermittent hum of machinery filled the room. The tension was tangible, almost palpable, you could physically feel it clinging to the air, thick as fog. This was a game of shadows, of unspoken battles, where every gesture could reveal or hide vital secrets. The scene then shifted. His mind flashed back to earlier memories, shadows of past interrogations, the cold touch of metallic chairs, the sharp scent of disinfectant. It was as if the room carried whispers of previous confrontations, each one echoing in the shadows, waiting for him to decipher. The memories were vivid, sensory details sharpened with time, the metallic taste in his mouth, the rough fabric of his sleeves, the icy grip of fear that refused to let go. Now, returning to the present, he recognized the familiar pattern. Silence, pauses, each carefully calculated. This was the moment to push, pressure mounting like a storm gathering strength. His mind raced through possible questions, dangers, pitfalls. Would he trigger a reveal? Or would he force the other side to reveal themselves? The tension tightened like a wire ready to snap, every second stretching unbearably long. Suddenly, a new voice pierced the silence, a slow, heavy tone that resonated like distant thunder. It was Wasserman. His words carried weight, deliberate, each syllable carefully weighed. He spoke about history, war, victory, memory, treading dangerous ground. His tone was steady but filled with underlying menace. The room seemed to constrict around his voice, the air thickening with anticipation. He paused briefly, savoring the moment, senses heightened. The scent of old paper mixed with a faint metallic smell, the tang of intensity. The words lingered, heavy as lead, as Wasserman illuminated a tough truth: Russia's past is not just history, it's a living, breathing shadow that shapes its present. Every phrase was a probe, every word a weapon. He felt the weight of the question hanging in the air: does keeping alive the memories of victory serve as a foothold for today's ideology? Or is it just an attempt to cling to relevance? His mind raced, understanding the trap. Wasserman was appealing not just to history but to the subconscious fears that still linger. The echoes of war, of bloodshed, these are not distant, immutable facts but powerful emotional legacies. His heart started pounding harder, each beat echoing in the silence, an inner alarm. He knew the analysis could spiral into dangerous territory. The room's atmosphere shifted from dense to oppressive, as if the walls themselves carried the weight of unspoken truths. Every detail, every gesture, felt magnified, like a high-stakes game where one wrong move could change everything. In this moment, he questioned everything anew: what truths are lurking behind these lines? Whose history are we really defending? The echo of past victories or the pain of countless losses? The conversation wasn't just words anymore, it was a battleground of perceptions, identities, and unspoken promises. As the dialogue deepened, a subtle shift occurred. Wasserman's voice grew softer but more piercing, each phrase a calculated punch aimed straight at the core. The question was clear: why does Russia cling so desperately to its past? Is it merely memory, or something darker? The air around him seemed to pulse with intensity, every nerve on edge. He realized that this was the true essence of the confrontation, whether it was a war of words or an unspoken struggle for influence. The past was a weapon, a shield, a puzzle, an unending game of shadows. Somewhere behind those calm, measured tones, the unspoken questions threatened to unravel everything. He braced himself for the next move, knowing that soon, the silence would shatter, revealing what lay hidden beneath. Would he find the truth, or be swallowed by it? The game was far from over, and in this tense moment, every second felt like the edge of a precipice. What was Wasserman hiding behind that composed exterior? And what secrets could explode once the last curtain fell? Stay tuned, the next revelation could change everything. A tense confrontation was unfolding. The air was thick with anticipation, the silent weight of unspoken threats. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence, calm but commanding, asking a provocative question. How far can deception go before it shatters everything? Moments later, the scene flashes back to a relentless battlefield of words, where truth and falsehood collide like thunderclaps. Imagine the crisp sound of footsteps on a cold, hard floor. The faint hum of a distant engine, tension mounting in every breath. Eyes lock onto a flickering screen, anticipation building like a storm ready to break. The moment reaches its peak, will honesty prevail or be buried under layers of deception? The debate intensifies as the narrator whispers, who really controls the narrative when lies are woven into the fabric of power? Sparks of conflict ignite with vivid imagery, raging fires of rhetoric, shadowy figures lurking in the background, plotting their next move. The question echoes, can truth survive in a world built on manipulation? Suddenly, silence. A pause. The screen flickers, revealing a stark truth, hidden behind mask after mask, disguising intentions more dangerous than weapons. What lies beneath the surface? What secret is about to explode into view? The suspense is unbearable. In this game of shadows, every move counts. Who will emerge victorious, truth or deceit? And what will be sacrificed in the process? The story leaves us hanging, the final twist lurking just beyond the horizon. Will the truth finally break free, or will darkness swallow it whole? The scene shifts again, revealing the raw smell of fear lingering in the air, metal, dust, and the faint scent of uncertainty. The moment feels heavy, real as if standing on the edge of a razor blade. And as the story concludes, a chilling question remains, what price are we willing to pay for lies? Just moments ago, something in the mind of Dmitry Gordon shifted unexpectedly. He had just made a call that would change everything, calling Anatoly Wasserman. What started as a routine conversation soon spiraled into chaos. Gordon believed he was steering the narrative toward a familiar script, one where he would present a straightforward image to the world. A Russian propagandist, precisely. But then, something unpredictable happened. Wasserman's words boomed over the line, so loud, so forceful, that Gordon's confidence wavered. Silence stretched painfully, like a heavy fog pressing down. The minutes ticked by with an eerie stillness. What did Wasserman really say? And more importantly, who was truly gaining the upper hand in this silent war? The truth began to emerge, subtle yet relentless. Stay tuned. What unfolds next will shock you to the core. Imagine a scene, a dimly lit room, the faint scent of polished wood mixed with nervous anticipation. Dmitry Gordon leans back slightly in his chair, relaxed, yet alert. He's ready to face whatever comes. Before him lies a tablet, its screen damp, reflections flickering like shadows. Occasionally he glances at the mirror, checking his expression, maintaining control. He rarely drinks on camera, he prefers gestures, small movements that speak volumes. A glass, a cloth, a slight tilt of the head. Seconds matter, each one could swing the outcome of this hidden battle. His face, lined with barely perceptible lines, reveals a story of constant vigilance. Not because he's beautiful, but because he's a master at projecting conviction. His eyes, ever alert, seem to carry 1,000 unspoken questions, surprised, skeptical, determined. He knows the game. The words, the gestures, all calibrated to rhyme with the audience's unspoken fears and hopes. The phrase Russia, for him, is more a weapon than a word, sharp, universal, heavy with implications. It's an instrument he's wielded tirelessly, layer upon layer of tactics, designed to shape perceptions. For years, he's played with the concept of the Russian opponent, an archaic figure, nostalgic and slightly comical, yet ominous. A symbol of the past, clinging desperately to power. Every time, he methodically dismantles that image, stripping it down to just the government and bureaucracy. To him, this is not just a debate, it's an art, a vast mission. A finger, raised in readiness, signals, everything is set. The atmosphere thickens, electric, tense. The screen flickers, the light sharpening into a piercing glare that illuminates his face in stark relief. The words, "Put your palm on the table," echo like a command. Calmly, he obeys, maintaining perfect balance, neither closed nor relaxed. Every gesture is deliberate, every movement a calculated move in the silent chess match. Meanwhile, the tablet's screen darkens, then flashes with a quiet vibration. An unspoken threat, a warning perhaps? Gordon sharpens his focus. The moment is critical. A voice, small, uncertain, almost fragile, breaks through the silence. It's Anatoly Wasserman. But something is off. The smile is missing. Instead, there's a strange weight in the tone, a mix of surprise and calculated control. Dmitri's heart races. Why now? Who gave the signal? These questions swirl in his mind as he judges the opponent's composure. The voice on the line barely hides the tension, a cautious calm masking undercurrents of something more dangerous. The line hangs, silent but loud with unseen power. Then, suddenly, the connection breaks. Just like that. The screen blacks out. Dmitri's mind spins. The game has changed, yet he remains confident. This isn't the end, only a pause before the storm. He watches the blank screen. No face, only a simple, neutral name, Gardon. But beneath that, a storm brews. Something unspoken hangs heavy. Can he read the subtle shifts? Detect the hidden messages? Every second feels alive with danger, anticipation. Then, a small echo, someone's voice, perhaps. A challenge. A provoking question. The silence screams. Dmitri braces himself. He's been here before, the dark room, the unseen fight, the constant game of shadows and light. This silent confrontation is about to explode. And he knows, once the mask drops, everything will change. The stakes are high. The outcome unpredictable. And the truth? It's only waiting to be uncovered in the next breath. A few moments ago, Dmitri Gordon found himself in a situation he never expected. Everything changed with a single phone call to Anatoly Wasserman. He believed he knew what the conversation would be, another typical exchange, a routine piece of the puzzle. But soon, reality shattered that assumption. The moment Wasserman's voice filled his ears, the room seemed to close in. Gordon didn't realize how much that call would turn everything upside down. At first, he sat back, confident, under control. His posture was cautious, yet composed, leaning slightly to the side, ready for anything. The lighting hit his face just right, emphasizing his sharp features, his attitude of calm. He kept a steady gaze, occasionally checking his reflection in the darkened screen. Every gesture, every breath, was calculated, yet beneath it, tension thrived. The room was silent, filled with anticipation. His hands brushed the edge of a glass, a habitual gesture that carried weight, the pause that can decide the outcome. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Wasserman's words struck like a punch to the gut, loud, relentless, unavoidable. The truth cut through the silence with a sharpness that made the air thick and oppressive. Gordon's mind raced. Why now? Who dared to challenge him? His eyes fixed on the tablet, feelings swirling beneath his composed exterior. The screen flickered, mirroring the chaos in his mind. Every detail was critical. Every second stretched taut. This wasn't just a call, it was a battlefield. And in that moment, everything depended on control, on reading the invisible signals. The debate about Russia's endless reliance on the past, its obsession with victories long gone, these weren't mere arguments. They were weapons wielded in a war of perception. The narrative, the facts, the accusations, each was a carefully crafted shot. Gordon knew the opponent's game, he'd studied their moves. Wasserman's reputation was clear, a master of long, winding stories that hide the cracks beneath. As the room grew heavier with unspoken threats, Gordon kept silent. His mind raced to gather the strength, to prepare for the next move. Suddenly, the connection was severed, abruptly, ruthlessly, bringing everything into stark darkness. No words. No visual cues. Just the cold, blank screen. His heart quickened. Was it a mistake? A trap? Or a deliberate attack meant to unbalance him? In that instant, clarity struck. This was no ordinary interruption. Something more ominous was at play. And yet, a strange confidence remained. He knew this game. He had played it for years, reading, anticipating, controlling. The loss of the connection only sharpened his focus. The room's silence became deafening as he waited, silent, immovable, while the unknown figure on the other side decided whether to speak or remain silent. The tension was suffocating, a standstill that could break at any moment. He was ready for any outcome. For the questions, the accusations, or the silence that might reveal everything. The faint hum of the equipment, the almost imperceptible shift in the air, each detail screamed that this moment was pivotal. His hand instinctively reached for the button, prepared for action. And just as the silence deepened, a voice broke through, calm but calculated, heavy with purpose. It was Wasserman. The game was on again. In that instant, Gordon understood. This was no ordinary interview. It was a clash of ideals, a battle for narratives. And he was in the front line, knowing that the next words could redefine everything. The question he faced now wasn't just about facts. It was about control, about forcing the opponent to reveal their true intentions. The stakes had never been higher. The outcome was uncertain, the tension unbearable. All that remained was to see what would happen, who would blink first in this deadly game of words. Just moments ago, an unexpected turn changed everything for Dmitry Gordon. He made a crucial call to Anatoly Wasserman, unaware that this conversation would flip the narrative upside down. Gordon had prepared to present one story, a typical Russian perspective. Yet, when the words started flowing from Wasserman's side, everything shifted. The tone was loud, commanding. A silence grew heavy in the room as Gordon listened, stunned. What did Wasserman really say? The tension built as the words cut through the air. Every second stretched longer as Gordon's mind raced. Slowly, he realized who was winning this battle of words. The outcome was close, unpredictable. Some fragments echoed loudly in his mind, shocking truths, accusations that nailed him to the spot. As the conversation reached its climax, the revelation became undeniable. Whoever came out on top would leave the other speechless. Stay tuned. The final moments will blow your mind. Imagine a fight where victory isn't declared with shouts but with silence, with the unspoken. The room's atmosphere thickened. Every detail, the faint hum of the microphone, the dim glow that barely illuminated the face, became part of this tense chess game. Dmitry sat back in his chair, leaning slightly against the backrest, trying to maintain composure. Behind him, a dark peach-colored piece of clothing was carefully draped, catching the subtle light from the pyramid lamp. The fabric was untouched, unadorned, an armor for this quiet duel. He barely moved, only adjusting his gaze to check his reflection in the mirror for a quick moment. His face was calm but alert, showcasing sharp features that revealed more than words ever could. He knew the importance of pauses, the quiet moments that say more than speech. Rarely did he indulge in gestures. Instead, he valued the power of silence, the slight raise of a glass, the subtle gesture that signals readiness. 1 second of hesitation could change everything. He loved to hold that moment, to let it breathe, to make his presence felt even in stillness. This was his secret weapon, a calm composure that unsettled opponents. His eyes reflected the dim glow from the screen, the faint, water-like sheen hinting at the intensity underneath. It was a look of recognition, of understanding. Not beauty, but clarity. His sharp lines betrayed no emotion, only a calculated expression of authority. Always alert, forever prepared. The world outside might think him predictable, but he knew how to challenge expectations. Across the space, a tablet lay waiting, its surface smudged and damp. Every movement around him was precise, deliberate. The subtle sound of fingers tapping echoed softly, intentional. Every element in this room was part of the game. Power, control, strategy. Dmitry's mind was already charting the next move, anticipating the opponent's tactics, preparing to counter. The moment was tense, electric. The camera's red indicator blinked steadily, signaling readiness. The light sharpened suddenly, casting shadows that danced across his face. He knew this was the crucial scene, the moment when everything could shift again. The stakes had never been higher. In this silence, in this pause, secrets would either emerge or be buried forever. Dimitri's hand rested lightly on the table, palms open, calm but ready. He commanded the scene without a word, letting the unspoken speak louder. Every breath, every heartbeat was part of the strategy. The unseen battle was about to reach its crescendo. Who would blink first? Who would reveal their true face? The outcome was hidden in the shadows of the room. A faint vibration broke the silence, a signal, a warning. Nothing more. Dimitri's gaze fixed on the screen. The moment of truth had arrived. In the quiet tension, he felt the weight of the unseen duel, an intricate dance of words, power, control. And in the depths of his mind, he was already preparing for what came next. Suddenly, an interruption. The call disconnected without warning. The screen went dark, broken only by the black text bearing his name, a cold, impassive message on the blank background. Dimitri froze, sensing the shift. This was no accident. Someone was playing a game much larger than expected. He instinctively pulled back, eyes narrowing. The puzzle was incomplete now, clues hidden in silence. His mind raced, questions piling up. Who had this power? Why now? Secrets lurked behind the connection's abrupt end. A strange calm settled within him as he prepared for the next move, aware that he was now part of a much larger game, where silence could betray or reveal everything. The room was thick with anticipation, shadows stretching long across the walls. The air grew heavier, almost suffocating. Yet, Dimitri remained unmoved, the calm before the storm. The unseen opponent was watching, waiting. And he knew, this was only the beginning. The final act was yet to come, and the outcome would surprise everyone. A few moments ago, Dimitri Gordon faced an unexpected turn during an intense debate. He believed he had control, yet everything suddenly shifted. The clash of words, the silent stares, all leading to a revelation no one saw coming. What did his opponent say that turned the tide so dramatically? Stay tuned because the truth will leave you stunned. Dimitri knew the tone was heavy enough to make anyone sit still. It demanded silence, a forced calm. If he tried to defend himself, he'd lose. If he stayed silent, he risked the same. He slightly lifted his arms, signaling he was ready to listen. Yet, inside, he was already planning the next move. He realized that if his opponent, Basterman, launched into a story, he'd try to pull him into a trap. To win, Dimitri needed facts, solid, undeniable. Russia's constant appeal to the past, glories in war, victories long since archived, clashed sharply with today's reality. Now, the country is seen as a source of danger, threatening Europe, neighbors, even its own future. He paused, building a more rigid tone, sharper. Or do you think this is all a challenge? That the world just can't understand Russia? The studio was deathly quiet. Even the assistant behind the glass was frozen, feeling the weight of the moment. Dimitri stared directly into the camera but kept one eye subtly watching the live feed's indicator. Every gesture, every tick of his glance, aimed at gauging his opponent's reaction. He had asked a question deliberately broad, any answer could be turned into leverage. He was sure of it. Now, either a long explanation or a mistake could give everything away. For a long time, Russia has been trying to assert its view, to push the narrative that it is just another world perspective. But once tanks cross borders, once borders become meaningless, the line is crossed. That's when aggression erupts. Dimitri's voice soared briefly, emphasizing the word, aggression. It hung heavy in the air, like a warning. He waited, reading the response. The silence was deafening. Then, almost quietly, he posed a direct challenge. You, as someone intelligent and informed, what do you think? The question cut through the tension, leaving a crack in the surface. Because now, everything hinges on that answer. Does the opponent have the courage to face the truth? Or will he stumble under the weight of his own silence? The scene was set for revelation. And the outcome? It will determine who truly controls the narrative, him or them. Stay with us because what happens next could change everything you believe about this game. A few moments ago, Dmitry Gordon found himself in a situation he never expected. It all started with a seemingly ordinary phone call to Anatoly Wasserman. Little did he know this call would completely turn his world upside down. As he faced the camera, he believed he was prepared for any scenario. But what Wasserman said next shocked him beyond words, shaking his confidence to the core. Stay tuned until the end, you will be stunned by the outcome. The conversation began with familiarity, but soon shifted into something much darker. Gordon had always preferred the controlled, polished version of himself, just moments before the recording started. That confident persona, composed and assertive, where the lighting was perfect and the environment sterile. But now, sitting in front of the screen, everything felt different. A subtle scent of dust in the room mixed with nervous anticipation. His hand rested on the table, fingertips lightly brushing the surface, feeling the coolness of the wood. The moment was tense, silent except for the faint hum of equipment and his own rapid breathing. He leaned back slightly, trying to appear relaxed, but every nerve was on edge. His reflection flickered in the darkened monitor, a narrowed gaze, sharp cheekbones, a face that showed not beauty, but resolve. His eyes, always observant, flicked to the side as he subtly checked his reflection. He knew his expression often betrayed his inner emotions, surprise, doubt, determination. This was the face of a man crossing the line from confidence to uncertainty, and yet he fought to maintain composure. Because in this moment, the stakes were life-changing. Across the line, Wasserman's voice broke the quiet, calm but heavy with hidden meaning. Something was off. Gordon's mind raced. Had he miscalculated? Did the invisible weapon he prepared miss its mark? As Wasserman's words settled, the room seemed to grow colder. A faint sensation of fear prickled along his spine, like the touch of a ghost brushing past. What was he really saying? The air shifted, an unspoken challenge hung in the silence. The words he expected to hear never came, replaced instead by a desperate question, who is truly in control here? The truth felt brutally close, yet it remained just out of reach. Suddenly, the line went dead. Silence pressed in with an oppressive weight. Gordon's heart pounded. The screen dimmed to black. A cold dread crept into his mind. Did this mean he had lost? Or was this just the beginning of something much darker? The last flicker of light on his face revealed a flicker of resilience. He refused to surrender. But the quiet, the stillness. It felt like waiting for an explosion. The tension dragged on, each second feeling like an eternity. Then, without warning, the line reconnected. No words. Only a dispassionate symbol, instead of a face, a simple name, Gordon. Faced with an unfamiliar void, his senses sharpened. He stared at the blank screen and wondered, who was truly behind this call? Could he read the expression of his opponent? Or was this just a carefully crafted mask? The moment stretched, the silence full of potential. Blood pounding in his ears, he prepared himself. The unspoken battle had begun, and he knew, deep down, this was only the edge of what was to come. The room's shadows, even his own breath, all seemed to hold their breath. Something was about to change forever. A moment of silence filled the room, thick with unspoken tension. The speaker's words hung heavily in the air, and Dmitry sensed that the real conversation was only beginning. His hands trembled slightly, feeling the rough texture of the table beneath his fingertips. Why now? What secrets lay hidden behind these measured phrases? The room's silence seemed to press against him, every second stretching interminably. Then came the quiet, an almost imperceptible pause, yet it resonated like a thunderclap in his mind. Wasserman's voice broke the silence, deep and deliberate, as if weighing each syllable. You're mistaken in one key point, he said, voice slow and steady. Russia does not dwell on war itself, but on its consequences. His words sliced through the air like a blade. It's not about the data, the historical dates. It's about family, about survival, about the enduring scars left behind. Dmitry's gaze was fixed. He felt a chill, like a cold wind piercing through the room. The words struck him, the true depth of the message. The war wasn't just a chapter in history, it was a living, breathing part of his own lineage. The quiet hum of the equipment surrounded him, a constant reminder of the cameras, the microphones. Every sense sharpened. What was Wasserman aiming at? Was this a warning, or a confession? He remembered the familiar phrase, Europe made its conclusions. But what about the real Europe? The one that liberated, or the one that forgot who had entered under fire? Those questions lingered, silent and sharp. Wasserman's voice remained inscrutable, unreadable. The room held its breath, waiting for the next move in this dangerous game. Suddenly, the connection flickered. A whisper of static interrupted the tense moment. The screen went dark. Dimitri's stomach clenched. The digital silence pressed against him like a heavy weight. The moment felt frozen in time, just before the storm. Inside him, a surge of adrenaline. What secrets would emerge when the voice returned? Or was this the end of the conversation? As the screen remained dark, Dimitri's mind raced. Was this simply a technical glitch, or something more? Who had cut the line? The room grew colder, the air thick with anticipation. He knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The unseen battle was only shifting to a new, more dangerous phase. And he was caught right in the eye of the storm. Moments ago, Dimitri Gordon faced an unforeseen challenge, something beyond his expectations. It all began with a routine call to Anatoly Wasserman, a conversation he imagined would proceed smoothly, following familiar patterns. Yet, instantly, everything shifted. The atmosphere became charged, tense, unpredictable. Wasserman's voice suddenly erupted through the line, loud, unwavering, breaking the calm Gordon had worked so hard to establish. There was an eeriness in his tone, a secret lurking just beneath the surface, as if he was desperate to reveal something but was holding back. His words sliced through the silence like a razor, unsettling Gordon's confidence. Who was he truly speaking to? Was this a threat, or a veiled warning? The atmosphere thickened with anticipation, a strange echo resonating in Gordon's mind, bouncing like distant thunder. Then, the shocking truth emerged, an event that flipped everything on its head. This was no ordinary call, it was a turning point. Wasserman's voice was no longer just speech, it sounded like a declaration. The world had already made its decision. But Russia? It seemed to exist outside this new global consensus, isolated, drifting on illusions of sovereignty. Was this reality? Or merely a false facade crafted to deceive? Gordon's thoughts spun rapidly, trying to grasp the full weight of what he was hearing. Silence stretched endlessly, interrupted only by the faint hum of studio equipment. His heartbeat echoed loudly, like distant thunder, each pulse pounding with suspicion. Was this some trap? Could he trust the words he'd just heard? His eyes flickered to the mirror, catching a fleeting reflection, an image of doubt masked beneath calm exterior. The tension became unbearable. He knew that hesitation could be costly. Suddenly, Wasserman's voice returned, sharper, more definitive. The world has made a choice, he declared confidently, as if pronouncing an irreversible verdict. Yet, beneath this certainty, questions swirled. Was the line between truth and illusion this simple? Was the entire planet truly united, or was this just another carefully crafted story? A wave of suspicion washed over Gordon. Could they be hiding something? Could the truth be concealed in plain sight? As the silence deepened, Gordon attempted to challenge the narrative, an urgent interruption, but the line went dead. An intense pause settled, heavy and oppressive. On his screen, only the neutral text guardon flickered, cold and impersonal, marking the gravity of the moment. Seconds stretched into eternity. He waited, was this the end? Or the start of something even larger? One thing was clear, today's conversation was no ordinary exchange. It was a battle over perceptions, a fight for truth. Suddenly, the connection was cut, clean, precise, deliberate. In the silence that followed, an unsettling thought lingered, what is really going on? Who holds the reins of power? And what lies beneath the carefully constructed words? As the screen darkened, uncertainty grew more intense. An empty digital space awaited, filled only with the muted anticipation of what's to come. No faces, no voices, just the cold, Unfeeling word guardon, an understated yet powerful symbol of an unseen war. Is this a sign of defeat, or a calculated pause? Only time will reveal the next move in this shadowy game. Hidden truths whisper beneath the surface. Could a single moment of silence unveil the entire hidden agenda? Who truly controls the narrative, those who speak, or those who listen? The tension thickened further. The atmosphere became electric with anticipation. The game isn't over yet, the next move could forever alter the balance of power. The stakes have never been higher. Who will win this high-stakes confrontation? And what secrets lie waiting in the shadows for their moment to emerge?